Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. Sabir Zazai, the Chief Executive of the Scottish Refugee Council, has said every Afghan person who arrived in the UK under a resettlement scheme in the year ending March 2023, almost 90 crossed the Channel in a small boat. This is a sign of a government that is failing in its commitment to Afghans. Absolutely failing. Every Afghan on a boat should have been able to reach here by the schemes that this government has set up, and it is a sign of failure that they are not. They promised to resettle 5,000 Afghan refugees in the first year and 20,000 over the coming years. And since this announcement, only 54 have been newly resettled on the ECRS, and the schemes are now apparently dormant despite a great need for them. As an example of this, prior to the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan, the Western Isles-based charity, the Linda Norgrove Foundation, was supporting 165 female students, including 96 studying medicine. Now, these women are not allowed to continue their studies in Afghanistan and have gone from trainee doctors to house helpers. Despite this, 5 Scottish medical schools are very supportive of allowing 20 Afghan students to travel to Scotland and complete their studies, and all have agreed to offer them places. And yet, the ACRS has not reopened, despite the UK government saying it would within a year. And there is no commitment to these women to come to Scotland, despite the places being there, despite them being welcome. And I would ask the Minister to reflect on that. People have been left behind, and I had dozens of families at the fall of Afghanistan who were in touch with me, desperate to get their relatives out of Afghanistan, and I only know of a handful who were able to make it to Scotland. He has left them behind. Can you tell me about the ACRS? How many expressions of interest have the government received on this scheme, and how many of these expressions of interest are sitting in a pile yet to be processed? Because my constituents have heard nothing about their expressions of interest. Moving to the situation of Afghans in hotels, I understand from the local MSP and Cabinet Secretary Jenny Gilruth that 54 Afghans were given notice to quit from a hotel in Glenrothes. She's aware of no impact assessment, of no discussion with local authorities prior to this decision being made. And when she raised this with the Minister for Immigration, she got nothing but a pat response with no detail on what she had raised. This is clearly not acceptable from the government, and they need to do much, much better if that's the level of engagement. Mr Deputy Speaker, we all know from our casework that there are lots of reasons why people might not take up the first offer of accommodation that they are given. So is the Minister actually confident that people don't have really legitimate reasons, such as family ties or links to the local community, or many other reasons that they don't want to be thrust out of the accommodation that they are in and into somewhere that they are completely unfamiliar without a support network, because that will cause far more damage in the long run rather than supporting people properly, which this government is clearly failing to do?
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And my honourable friend, I do reflect on what my honourable friend says in terms of individuals who remain in Afghanistan, and she will know my concerns in that space. This statement today is clearly about those who are here and those who we had to do a huge job of work to get out of hotels into accommodation. And there was an extensive engagement process with local authorities. Many times I had all the local authorities on calls. I met many of them face to face. It is simply not correct that people didn't have notice for this. So, I'm happy to go away and look at that case, but I can guarantee her the answer right now is that that hotel was given notice, that there were Home Office workers in that hotel, because I ensured there were in every one. Look, this has been an incredibly difficult process, but what I'm not going to allow to happen is the kind of traducing of the work of these officials in DLUC in the Home Office who worked throughout the summer, day and night, to make sure that we met this target. They've done an extremely good job. Nobody would begin to think that Afghanistan is anything but a human tragedy of epic proportions, and we are trying to salvage what we can out of that. As my comments in terms of future movements, it's right that individuals come here and go into settled accommodation, not into hotels. Hotels are unsuitable. We've seen that time and again. And as I've said time and again, this government will honour her commitments to those who served.